This video is going to cover the second part of Chapter 7, Section 7. We're going to start with the warm-up for 7-7. So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and complete number 1, the minor and the cofactor, and 2, the minor and the cofactor, but then just number 3 on the determinant. If you haven't given time, go ahead and pause the video and then unpause it when you're ready, when about 5 minutes in, after the kids have had the opportunity to work on it. Okay, so let's look at A. Number 1, A is the minor, right? So we're going to cross through the row and the column of the location that we're trying to find. For number 1, row 1, column 1, would be 6. And then I'd go to row 1, column 2, and that'd be 0. And then I'd go to row 2, column 1, -5. And then row 2, column 2, +2. Those are the minors. Now the cofactors, we change the sign on the top right, bottom left location, which means this is 6. There's no such thing as -0, so it stays as 0. The -5 becomes +5, and the 2 stays as 2. Now we go to number 2. So when it's a 3 by 3, it's a little bit more complicated. For the minors, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cross through the row and the column that we're in, but then we have to find the determinant of what's left. So row 1, column 1 would be 1 times 2 minus -1 times 1, or 2 minus a -1, which becomes +1, or 3. Then I go row 1, column 2, and I would get 1 times -3 minus 1 times 1, -3 minus 1, which is -4. Then I go row 1, column 3, and I get -1 times -3 minus 1 times 2, or 3 minus 2, which is 1. Then I move to row 2. So now all of this is for row 2. First is row 2, column 1. What's left is 1 times 0 minus -1 times 2. 0 minus a -2 becomes +2, or 2. Then comes row 2, column 2. What's left there is 1 times 4 minus 1 times 2. 4 minus 2, which is 2. Last one in that row would be row 2, column 3. And so I do -1 times 4 minus 1 times 0. -4 minus 0, which is -4. Then comes row 3. So first row 3, column 1, and that would be 1 times 0 minus 2 times 2. 0 minus 4, which is -4. Now row 3, but column 2, would be 1 times 4 minus -3 times 2. 4 minus a negative becomes plus, and that's 10. Last one is row 3, column 3, and this leaves 2 times 4 minus -3 times 0. And I get 8 minus 0, which is 8. So those are your minors. 3, -4, 1, 2, 2, -4, -4, 10, and 8. That's A. B is the cofactors. So remember, we changed the ones in the north, south, east, west location. Everything else stays the same. So 3, -4 becomes +4. 1 stays as 1. 2 becomes -2. 2 stays. -4 becomes 4. -4 stays. 10, -10, 8 stays. And those are the cofactors of that matrix. Okay, now we're going to look at 3, the determinant of a 2 by 2. This is our fish. So we're going to go this way minus that way. So negative 2 times 4 minus negative 1 times 3. And I get negative 8 minus a negative 3. Negative 8 plus 3, which is negative 5. And that's the determinant of this 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you find the determinant of a 3 by 3. So this is part 2 of 7-7. So your book, and this is kind of what we were talking about before, you actually you expand by finding the determinant of what's left. So you're basically finding the minor and then multiplying it by the determinant. So I would take this number, which put it here, multiply it by, if I cross through row and column, the determinant of what's left. So that's the minor of that. So whatever row you're canceling out, you actually multiply by the minor of that. And you would continue to do it for A2 and A3. You only do this for one row at a time. In my opinion, this is a little bit more complicated than what I'm going to show you. So you're more than welcome to do this method, but we're going to focus on a little bit different method, which I believe is how you learned it in Algebra 2. So if I have, let's say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just for example, and I want to find the determinant of this matrix. What you're going to do first is rewrite the first 2 columns to the right of that last column. So this would be 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8. And then you're going to multiply along diagonals. I'm going to multiply all these numbers together, get a number. Multiply all these numbers together, get a number. Multiply all these numbers together, get a number. And then I'm going to find the sum of those numbers. So let's just say this is sum 1, okay? Then I go back the other direction. I multiply all these numbers. I multiply all these numbers. I multiply all these numbers. I get the sum of those 3 numbers. And let's call that sum 2. And then I take the first number, so whatever S1 is, and subtract from it the sum of the last ones. So a lot of people remember the rewriting and the diagonals, but forget the order of what gets subtracted. If you think about the way we do our 2 by 2, these diagonals should go first, which is how it is. So it's those diagonals minus the diagonals. So the top left, bottom right comes first, and then you subtract from it the sum of the bottom left, top right. All right, let's work through some examples. So this is what we are not doing. This is the other method, okay? The directions here just say evaluate the determinant of the following matrix. So I'm going to start by rewriting the first 2 columns. So negative 2, 1, 3, 1, negative 1, 1. Then I'm going to multiply down the diagonals, and there should be 3 of them that you have top to bottom. So I would get negative 2 times negative 1, which is positive 2, times 0, and that's 0. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, times 3 is negative 6. Next one is 0 times 1 times 1, which is 0. And then we're going to add all these numbers together, and I get negative 6. Now I go back the other direction. This way, this way, this way. And I would multiply again down those diagonals. So 0 times negative 1 times 3 is 0. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4 times 1, positive 4. 1 times 1 times 0 is 0, and I get 4. So then I do the first number we got, which is negative 6, minus the second number, which is 4, and I get negative 10. And just like we checked the determinants on a calculator with a 2 by 2, you can do the same thing with a 3 by 3. You just enter in the 3 by 3. Second matrix menu, go to the math, hit DET, and then choose the matrix that you want to find the determinant of. Okay, one more example. So evaluate the determinant by hand, then check the answer on your calculator. So again, we're going to duplicate this over here. Negative 2, 3, negative 1, 1, 0, 2. We're going to multiply down the columns, or down the diagonals. So negative 2 times 0 times 3 is 0. 1 times 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. and I get positive 17. Go back the other direction. 3 times 0 is 0 times negative 1 is still 0. Negative 2 times 1, negative 2 times 2, negative 4. 1 times 3 is 3 times 3 is 9. Add those together, and I get positive 5. And then I want to do 17 minus 5. And I get 12 for my determinant. And again, we'll check it on the calculator. We're going to use the graphing calculator to check it. So I go to second matrix, go over to edit. This time I want to do a 3 by 3. So I have C there, that's a 3 by 3. I'm going to enter in negative 2, 1, 3, 3, 0, 1, negative 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to go second matrix, go over to where it says math. Actually, I got to get out of the menu, go back to my home screen, then do that. Second matrix, go to where it says math, click on DET. And I did it in C, so I'm going to bring up the matrix menu, scroll down to C, and hit enter. And there's the answer that matches the one that we worked out. So again, great for checking an answer. You will not have your graphing calculator on your quiz or your test, but you will on a standardized test. So if it asks for determinant, that's a quick way to find it and also to check your work while you're doing your homework. All right, so that wraps up the notes. Don't forget to submit. So today's assignment is 219, classwork 2, 7.7, part 2 notes. Submit those now before you forget, but definitely before the end of class. And then you can use the rest of the time to work on the homework for 7.7 part 2. Have a great day, guys.